My counselor told me, you're not gonna make money in psychology. And I was like, why? And he was like, because you're black. White people are not gonna pay to see a black psychologist. And my world shattered.
Oh my goodness. That's actual racist. It's sad, man.
My counselor told me, you're not gonna make money in psychology. And I was like, why? My counselor told me, you're not gonna make money in psychology. And I was like, why? And he was like, because you're black. White people are not gonna pay to see a black psychologist. And my world shattered.
Oh my goodness.
My name is Sage Brooks, and this is my story.
Why would you tell a student? That's real. That's actual racism. Telling your black student that no one's going to go see her simply because she's black. For one, not only does it degrade your student, it degrades, honestly, every other race, because you think they're as dense as you. You think fellow white people or fellow whatever race you are people are just as dense as you when it comes to going to see a psychologist or psychiatrist, whichever she is. It's unfortunate.
I grew up in Southern California with 5 other siblings. My parents were always fighting. Arguments and domestic violence was common. The strongest memory I have of my mom growing up was her crying. She would be crying all the time. I remember we were at a family gathering and my mom and my dad got into a physical altercation with one another, and the police were called. My siblings and I were taken away from my parents, and I became a ward of the state at 5 years old. Me and my 3 sisters were placed into a foster home, and my brothers were placed into a different foster home, so we were essentially separated. Every weekend, my grandmother would come and pick us up and take us to her house, and then she'd have to drop us back off. She was a Jehovah's Witness and a very strict woman. My grandmother did her best to make sure that we felt like a family and we were like a family, and eventually my grandmother got custody of us, and we were back together again with my siblings. It was always a full house. It was always a lot of noise, and we got along relatively well. We all had our own different personality traits. For example, I loved to read. I read a lot of books on psychology and how to deal with things, and that cleared the way for me to understand what I do want in life.
I love her resilience in life. The fact that at the age of 5, she became a ward of the state. But although she's a child in this instance, when she talks about her past stories and how she came up as a kid, she's kind of speaking from a positive connotation. And what I mean by that is you can kind of tell that the memory of her mom adopting her or taking her in brought a smile to her face. She doesn't necessarily look at her childhood, at least in this light or this instance, in a negative way. She looks at it as, my situation could have been worse. However, because of my grandmother or because of this happening, I was given a better chance at life.
High school was a little tumultuous for me. I started to ask more questions about my family, and that is when I started to look at my parents with more resentment. I just felt like a very angry person. My grandmother tried to put me in therapy, and that didn't really work because I refused to talk to the therapist. I was just holding everything inside, and I had a really bad attitude problem. A lot of my anger stemmed from not having anybody I felt that I could talk to. Basketball was definitely an outlet for me when it came to just expressing emotions and releasing some of that anger. My relationship with my basketball coach helped me a lot. I remember she asked me what college I was going to, and I was like, I'm not going to college. She changed my mind about that really fast. I went to college not knowing what to expect. It was an entirely different world for me. I wanted to be a psychologist, and my counselor, who was a black man, he told me, you're not gonna make money in psychology. And I was like, why? And he was like, because you're black. White people.
And it was a black man who said it. It was a black man. Here I am at the intro of the video. I said, and this is why I prefaced that by saying whatever race you are. Because at first I said white, or I said whatever race you are. Whoever said that, you're degrading not only her, but you're degrading your race by thinking they're dense. And the whole time, it was a black man who said it. Terrible. Terrible. You have another black man telling a young black woman who wants to get something done with her life, who wants to achieve something great, and I should have known this, who wants to achieve something great, that because you're black, no one's going to take you serious. And that's the insecurity he has within himself. He wakes up every day, and he thinks that because he's black, no one takes him serious. He doesn't think it's because he's an idiot or because he's racist or because he's ignorant. He thinks it's because he's black. And he's putting these beliefs on other young people who are trying to create something great within themselves. The reason I didn't initially think a black person said that is because when I heard it, it was just pure racism. And I wouldn't have thought someone would be racist against their own race, but here we are, somehow. You're racist against your own people. For what? You shouldn't be racist against anyone, but this is just unbelievable. I'm sorry, y'all. Let's continue.
People are not going to pay to see a black psychologist, and my world shattered because I was always so fascinated with psychology. And here I am being told that one of my biggest dreams is just not going to happen because I'm black. I started to learn about my oppression. I started to learn about how much of a plight we have in America as black people. The main thing I took away from college was that I was a victim and that I was oppressed and that there was white privilege and a system of white supremacy that is definitely something that's going to have its foot on my neck for my entire life. It got to the point where if I would be in a room full of white people, I would be uncomfortable. Like, that's the mentality that I had. After all this time with leftist professors and students, I started leaning into the progressive ideals. I decided I wanted to be active and as a student. And so we were marching around the school with megaphones, and we sit in the bookstore and we yell at the top of our lungs, and we basically block people from getting like books.
You know what's crazy? The only time, and I'm not making this up, I am pretty young. The only time I even hear race being discussed in terms of anything is by black people online. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's this ideal or this ideology within a lot of these spaces that white people inherently have something against black people. But every time I hear anything negative about race, even every time I hear anything negative about black people, it's not coming from white people. Maybe this is confirmation bias. Maybe I just haven't been exposed to enough life, and that's also a possibility. I'm not saying this sarcastically. It can also be a possibility. But even in this instance, who told her that? Her black professor. Oh, you can't do this. You're black. Who do you think is starting this victim mindset? It's not white people who are oppressing you. And let's be honest, a lot of these students who go to predominantly black schools, they're not even exposed to that many white people coming up. It's other black professors. When you're supposed to be sowing a seed of courage, of triumph, of you can do anything. That's what the Bible says. I can do all things through Christ. It doesn't say I can do all things through Christ if I'm white. It doesn't say I can do all things through Christ unless I'm black. It says I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. But every time, and this is an example, you hear about race, it always comes from this victim perspective. As if our ancestors in the 1950s who actually did go through stuff. They went through real racism. Like, you can see it. They triumphed. They persevered. They went through it. They became doctors, lawyers. They started families. They raised their families in the church. They were married. We're regressing with less oppression. And we're being told that we're victims. I don't understand. But I'm going to finish this video out. Let's go.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking around and I realize, like, what am I doing? Like, what is this accomplishing here? I felt like it was more disruptive as opposed to achieving any specific goal. And so I stopped going to those events. I stopped marching and I was like, this is not accomplishing anything. So I started to question just my sense of relationship or identity with the left. My best friend, she had kept trying to get me to watch these conservative videos. And at some point I gave in and gave one a watch. At the time, I didn't know it was a PragerU video, but I went on watching more and more of their episodes. And then I started to learn more about the government and how the government operates, and I was just more and more intrigued about politics. I ended up going to Washington, D.C. with Lexit to a pro-American rally, and everything they said resonated with me. So here I am on the lawn of the White House listening to Donald Trump, and I'm sitting here watching people of all colors coming together to celebrate family values. That is when I became a patriot. Growing up, my grandmother did her best to make sure that we felt like a family and we were like a family, but we didn't have a dad. We didn't have even a male role model to look to. So as you can imagine, it affected our lives. But my brothers, I feel, had it the worst because they didn't have anybody around to teach them how to be a man or how to grow into one. My brother looked to people in the neighborhood for a father-like figure or any type of guidance. And unfortunately, that led him to get involved in gangs. My other brother, when he was 16, he decided to smoke marijuana for the first time. But he didn't know that the marijuana was laced with PCP. I got a call saying that my brother was running down the street in his boxers and barefoot, and he tried to run through a window. He always was a kind-hearted person, very smart, very funny, but there was something different in my brother the very first time I saw him after he got out of the hospital. It was like he was dead inside. It's just a part of his brain that just was never the same. And
This is sad, man. And when I hear this is a big issue within our community. This all started due to the lack of fatherhood present in her own home. And in the Black community, there's this trope that there's absent fathers. I don't know all the statistics on that, but based off of this specific trope and what I've seen, there kind of is a lack of fatherhood. Well, a lack of father in the primary homes, I would say. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because when you talk about issues or you talk about victimhood, the people who are promoting this victimhood mentality never bring up fatherhood. And you're probably asking yourself, why would they bring up fatherhood? What is the point of that? Well, in the Black community, there's a huge point because that's one of our biggest issues. Fatherhood. All of this started. This whole thing could be linked back to the lack of fatherhood. That's where she came from. This is how her story started. A 16-year-old boy running through the street wearing underwear on drugs. And how did she frame this? He never had a father figure in his life. That's how she framed it. That's how the big sister framed it. And when I hear people talk about victimhood, they kind of ignore this whole thing because this doesn't fit their victim narrative. This is something that the Black community can fix. But this doesn't fit the narrative. And because it doesn't fit the narrative, it's ignored. And that's a problem that I have. You can't ignore one of the biggest issues just because it doesn't fit your we're a victim mentality.
And I'll never forget when I got the call from the police that my brother had been killed. He had been hit by a big truck, blunt force trauma. I really believe that had my brother not smoked, he'd probably still be alive today. And then 7 months later, my sister, who struggled with drug and alcohol abuse, passed away.
Jesus Christ.
Not having a mom and a dad took a really big toll, and is the reason I feel that I have 2 siblings who've passed on. My entire life, out of all the 10 commandments, the one that I had the most difficulty with was honor thy mother and thy father. It was only 6 years into her 12-year sentence that I started to really forgive my mom for not being there for us. That was the one decision I feel that changed the course of my life. The main reason that I went on a different direction in life than my siblings is because they blamed my parents for their life circumstances, even well into adulthood. You really do give your power away when you have a victim mentality. Being a victim means whatever's happening to you, it's not your fault. And so that gives you a disposition where you're not motivated, you're not inspired, you don't feel the power to change your life. So when I was anti-American, I was also victim-minded and also looking for ways in which I'm oppressed. As my patriotism went up, my self-responsibility went up, life just felt so much better once I started to recognize what a great country we live in and how much opportunity there really is. And so it's like, if I don't take advantage of that opportunity, that's on me. A lot of people are born into unfortunate situations and they feel like the cards are stacked against them. There's nothing they can do. It's kind of like a cycle that continues.
This video really resonates with me because this young woman, her life she was destined to fail. And let's be honest, she was destined to fail. And I'm not saying that because she's black or a woman. That's not why I'm saying that. Believe it or not all black people or women are destined to fail. But I'm saying that because she grew up naturally with no parents. She was a ward of the state when she was 5 years old. Her grandmother finally took her in, and based off of her family situation, she had a brother and a sister. Both are done. Both are done from this world because, unfortunately, statistically, they were destined to fail. They had no parents. They had no guidance, no father figure, no mother figure in their lives. But despite this, despite losing both of her siblings, despite a racist professor told her that no one will want to go to a black psychiatrist. You can't do that. You're black. Despite a black professor telling her this. And mind you, she didn't have any father or mother figure, so she probably looked up to these professors. She still succeeded, despite everything. She's the opposite of a victim. So my thing is, someone like her who would have been a victim to most people, she's telling you, I'm not a victim, because she sees what happens when you have a victim mentality. She sees what happens when you identify as that. But she's like, no, I want a better life for myself. But then you have institutions, or I'm not even going to say institutions. You have people pushing this victim narrative onto their students, onto the youth, the future. You're pushing this narrative onto the future. It's terrible, man. But if you have any suggestions for me, comment down below. Jojo, and I'll see you.